Good day, everybody, and welcome to the first ever Black Advancement Mega Show. Anyway, so this show is basically a conglomerate of all the different programs that we do here at Black Advancement Incorporated. So we're going to kick off our first one with the Obnoxious Synopsis, where we take a chance on the news. Politics.
So, Democratic Senator Ralph Warnock defeated Republican challenger Herschel Walker in a Georgia runoff election on Tuesday, ensuring Democrats an outright majority in the Senate for the rest of Joe Biden's current term and capping an underwhelming midterm cycle for the GOP in the last major vote of the year. Democrats now have a 51-49 Senate majority. So, okay, it definitely seemed to help that Warnock's opponent was BS crazy. But he ran a clever campaign, making sure to highlight that crazy. And I also think it helps that he definitely he already has a decent progressive record on which to run. That actually helps voters, persuade voters to get out and vote for you. I think corporate Democrats could learn something from that. But as for, I read reports that Manchin and Sinema, their power over the Senate will be diluted, but it doesn't really matter because the Republicans have the House anyway. So
yeah, so that whole Kirsten Sinema thing was trash because she's trash. As soon as things are going a certain way, of course, like, oh, well, I'm gonna go ahead and call myself an independent. She's not an independent. She's just here for corporations, and she's a dirtbag. So that's really my whole political analysis around it. Shanice, did you have anything about this whole Herschel Walker crap?
I'm just glad we're not one. I have you that live in Georgia that went out to vote. So So they were praying hard, and I'm glad he won because they have to live in the state.
You don't want to talk about werewolves and abortions all the time.
Who does?
I want to talk about vampires.
well, you know, a werewolf and a vampire. I was watching the TV the other day.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive. I mean, Warnock won 4 elections in 2 years, something like that, which is highly impressive. So I'm glad for him. You know, he can now kind of sit tight for the next 6 years and kind of relax. It's a shame that the Republican Party got that desperate that they decided to put Herschel Walker forward. But you know, that's, I guess, the sign of the times with politics. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to have a plan. You just gotta wear the right color lapel or whatever it is, or pin or whatever, ties. I don't really know what they do. But that's all that's all you need at this point. You know, get down with their agenda, do what they tell you to do, and they'll put you up for election. But the unfortunate thing is this thing lasted for 24 hours with the 51-49, and then old silly face out there in Arizona decided to jump ship and break it back even. So, you know, here we are.
Yeah, I'm glad that Warnock won, and it is impressive to win 4 elections within, what was it? You said a 2-year cycle?
Yeah.
Roundabout.
Yeah.
But it's still very alarming to me that he almost lost to a man whose mind is basically made of hamster vomit.
That is not.
I can't even believe it was that close. I really don't understand the agenda of the Republican Party at this point. If you can just basically put someone, they're just picking famous names and throwing them in there, and people are voting for it. This is an alarming. This is really alarming to the state of this country to me. There's no way that this man should have even been considered. I wouldn't let him run the slushy machine to 7-Eleven, much less a whole state.
Yo,
it's sad, and it really hurts me that it was a black man.
He got a lot of black votes. That's the part that's really, to me, it's like you're just patronizing us and making fun of us. You pick the worst candidate you could possibly have is just every sort of, thing that, poor, uneducated, ignorant racists believe about blacks, and you put him up there to be elected. I mean, the good things about this election, though, are, I read a couple articles, and one thing I didn't think about is it gives a little bit of a buffer for 2024. Of course, Kristen Sinema came wipe that out.
The worst. I'm sorry. Keep going.
Yeah, because that's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt Democrats more than just losing, her vote. She did vote with Biden in the Democratic Party about 93% of the time. But what's gonna happen is it'll split the vote for the next Democrat that comes, guarantees a Republican for that spot. I mean, it's almost like Trump running for president, guarantees a Democrat's gonna win. I was so glad when he put that out. But the other thing is it makes Georgia like one of the 5-6 battleground states now. All of a sudden, the black community there has really stepped up. I mean, if it weren't for them, Warnock wouldn't have had a snowball's chance in hell. I mean, if you look at the diversity in the vote and the demographics, it was clear that black people are what moves most of the votes, right? We're that that's why they come for us when the election time and no other time, because one, we're apparently gullible enough to keep voting for the people who don't do anything for our personal agenda. But when we do vote, we vote in mass. And, I feel bad for the people of color in Georgia that voted for Herschel Walker. But I mean, the same as I do for those that voted for Trump. It's just an overwhelming ignorance that just seems to pervade the communities. And I don't know how they arrive at these conclusions that these people are for their good. I mean, I get it. That a lot of people say that, Fetterman in Pennsylvania, had a stroke, difficulty speaking. I mean, that I understand. He has a reason. Herschel Walker's reason is clearly, it's not stroke related.
He did have 8,000 carries at Georgia. Right?
Yeah. I mean, he couldn't even remember where he was running at, whether he's running for the House, the Senate, or in Texas. Georgia. I mean, come on, man.
When the helmets, no less, were made of paper mache. So, I mean,
he's got all Baker Mayfield going forward. I don't know, man. It's crazy, man. Crazy.
And can we just stop to reflect on the fact that we're celebrating that this guy didn't get elected? I mean, in all my life, I did not ever think that the floor would be so low for candidates. It's just so pathetic that we're even sitting here going, oh man, thank God this person who can barely form a sentence didn't get elected to the Senate.
But by a whisper, though. By a whisper, he did.
It's absolutely, it's insane, right? It's insane. I just, I guess I would feel sorry for us as a nation if we didn't do it to ourselves. But I just think it's pathetic.
But it's how Republicans view black people. That's what it is. They want sports stars. I mean, I anticipate in the next coming 4 or 5 election cycles, you're going to see rappers up there, people we would never dream even belong in those places.
I think the Republicans are on to something.
This is what we do. This is America. We love celebrity candidates. I mean, look at the governor. I mean, these are people that were celebrities. We didn't just start doing this now with Herschel Walker. This is something we like to do. So that's the part that makes it scary. You have to also look at all of the people that did vote for Herschel Walker and say, well, what made you decide that this was the person that you wanted to vote for? What about him spoke to you? And we are not doing that necessarily. There's a group of people out there that think he was the best for the job. So
the biggest reason is because he's a Christian and he's forgiven. And the guy who has been a pastor at Martin Luther King's church for the last decade is not.
He's just not Christian enough.
Antoine, last word on this, man.
Yeah, racism. Racism has no agenda. So it's just like when they put a camera in front of all the folks who voted for Trump, they really couldn't tell you what he was going to do for them, or after his time is up, what he did for them, right? Or the country. Same thing with Herschel Walker. They had no real reason to vote for him other than the fact that it wasn't going to be Warnock, and they felt like it was going to be a win for them and whatever their real agenda is. I think for me, the frightening thing is that racism is making such,
Oh no, keep going, man. Keep going.
Oh, so sorry. Yeah. I thought I was frozen. No, so like the thing for me is that I want people to like take heed to what's happening now, because in 2024, to somebody's point here a minute ago with all the celebrities, it's going to be worse. And also what's worse about that is the fact that when you hear their thoughts and what they believe the agenda should be for America, it's nuts. And a lot of folks are misinformed. And so it's just one of those things where it's sad. I'm very happy that Warnock did win, but it's far from done by a long shot.
Yo, let's go ahead and switch it up.
I'm
man.
sorry.
Oh, what? Why? What are you doing?
No, nothing. I was just gonna say like we're really about to vote in the guy from the Green Mile that was in prison. But go ahead.
Yo, how can you wait a second? How are you gonna derail the mega show?
I wasn't derailing it. I was just like, but go ahead.
How do you derail the mega show? Like that's great. Anyway, well,
go ahead.
Whatever, man. Listen.
And another thing.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of derailing the show, we would like to bring you to another show that we do, which is Hollyhood, where we discuss movies that we like from a Black perspective. Speaking of which, we just had a killer movie come out that we wanted to discuss that's new. I will allow Maurice 5 seconds to vacate the premises. No spoilers here, folks. Well, I guess for the people watching, doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm going to have the man, the myth, the legend, Antoine Smallwood Worldwide break down our breakdown and start us off about Black Panther 2. Antoine, go ahead.
Yeah, so definitely, thank you. Black Panther 2 was absolutely incredible, right? Wakanda Forever. What made it great is that, one, it had to fuse real life circumstances, the death of Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace there, with the actual character in the movie. And I think that first, I would got to give credit to Ryan Coogler and the entire staff for being able to rewrite an entire script, change an entire direction of the storyline, and pivot it into a new direction. The way the movie starts off, where they get right to it and deal with his death, definitely shout out to Marvel for that opening. Everybody, I don't know about the theaters you were in, but the theater I was in, everybody had tears in their eyes. It was just one of those things that was like touching. They included him, not only movie stuff, but behind the scenes stuff, things you hadn't seen in the actual Marvel write-up opening. So that was cold. And then just seeing his sister, Shuri, and how she was trying to save him and just kind of dive into, you know what, she knew that it was beyond, saving at that point, but she didn't want to deal with that reality versus everybody around her. It's just the whole theme, I think, for this phase of the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, has been like pain and grief, and the Black Panther 2 Wakanda Forever was no stranger to that. It kind of continued that theme. So it was a phenomenal job there. Angela Bassett as Queen Ramonda just literally obliterated the role, people talk about Academy Award winning performances. You got to see that scene alone where she's addressing the UN. Forget about everything else she did. That was a tour de force. Don't let that, sneak past you. I do think that the character development, the Easter egg surprises, I don't want to eat it up from everybody else to be able to talk about it, but it was just the cameos, everything they did to progress the story and what was happening beyond T'Challa and how they're going to move forward was great. Not only because it was true to certain stories in the comic books, but if you've never read the comic book, right, what made this phenomenal in terms of this movie is that you can identify with what happened in the first movie and its transition going forward in terms of the power, and that the women, more importantly, were kind of holding it down. And not just holding it down, but actually seeing things through. Because again, when you see that reveal at the very end of the movie after the credits, again, that people had tried to talk about it, but seeing it in real time, because normally a post-credit scene is like maybe 30 seconds or whatever. That was like a 5-minute scene. And so you got to kind of understand why, because the number one question I had during the movie was, where's everybody else at his funeral? They weren't there. None of the other Avengers, none of that. And so you got a chance to understand, why certain things were hidden, and just that's before you go back and digest the story of Namor as well. And, what his thoughts were. So,
dude, hey,
it's,
I'm sorry, let's go ahead.
You're good. You're good. Jump in.
No, I don't want So I don't get emotional at movies because I see a lot of terrible things in real life. because of some of the things that I do. Can't comment on that. Anyway, but I will say that there were certain people in the theater that they were really they were really losing it. They could not keep it together like ever at any point. I'll tell you the thing that won Angela Bassett an award for me was her shoulders when she came out. I was like, yo, she
Listen.
Yo, I saw yo, she stood up. I was like,
you felt like doing
like, what is she doing? What's her regimen?
Yeah.
What's her regimen? Yeah, oh yeah. Go ahead, girlfriend. Yes, but I gotta look. Hot take of the year. I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I honestly think that this might be better than the first one. The fighting scenes to me definitely were better. You know, because it's just the way that it wasn't as jumbled as the first one was, and I really liked the first one a lot. I mean, the only thing that Black Panther has going against it is that they keep making the antagonist the best character in the movie. Like Namor was the best character in that movie.
Namor was phenomenal.
Yeah. He was,
And speaking of the antagonist,
Oh,
the
here
fact
we go.
that you agree with their plot too, because Killmonger, he had a
Absolutely.
good idea. Like, yeah, you should give back to the community. You got all this vibranium. Go ahead. And then, what's his name?
Namor.
He had a point.
He had wings on his ankles.
He had a point. Get rid
He's
of
a
the
mutant.
colonizers that's taking over the world. Like, I can't disagree with them. That's the beauty of it. Like, I'm like, yeah, maybe they should.
The man had his own money. You understand? He's got his own money. He got his own money.
Got his own money. Got his own money. No, they burned down his family though. They were enslaving him. So that was like enough to be like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and he had like the Goodyear. He got the Goodyear tires, like the real life Goodyear tire. Yo, Greg.
I need those from the StockX app.
Yeah. Greg,
yeah, y'all bring up the fact that the antagonist is usually like the greatest dude in every Black Panther movie. And I was thinking the same thing. I was like, boy, oh boy, if Killmonger would have took over and Namor would have been there and made that offer, I'd have like, that is a world that I can live in. Oh.
But what did you think about the length? Wasn't it kind of long?
That's what she's. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, the movie was kind of long, but necessary. There was a lot of extra stuff that had to be thrown in because, T'Challa.
So, I mean, I normally will fall asleep in any movie when they're longer, but this movie I watched from beginning to end. Didn't even have to get up and do the old man trip to the bathroom or anything. And I mean, I absolutely love the movie. I did not even notice it was that long. And even an old, cold-hearted Bama like me shed a tear or two because I love Chadwick Boseman. He's not only a great actor, but the stories you hear of the things he's done with other people. I always love to hear what other people say about people more than I like to hear what someone has to say about themselves. Because for one, it's much more accurate. And two, it shows their character, and the types of things that he's done, unbeknownst to a lot of people, were just, the stories that have come out have just been absolutely amazing. And then see the tribute that they paid.
Great tribute.
He was really a tragic loss for the Black community and the entertainment industry as a whole. But the movie I absolutely loved. And, I know that others have bootlegs of such movies. I would never do such a thing, but others have and have watched it numerous times. I'm disappointed in it. But
talk to me offline. But anyway.
TJ, what was your take on the movie?
Great synopsis. Everybody has said a lot of the stuff that I was thinking. I guess ultimately what I also found compelling was the struggle between new direction and tradition, right? That his sister was dealing with. And the fact that she ended up coming to a place where she appreciated the traditions that they had. And she, I guess she even honored them to a point. But I thought that was really, I'll say central to the movie. Angela Bassett, you guys were talking about the scene in the UN. I thought when she was talking with the general, when she fired her, basically when she was saying,
"Oh man,
that's powerful."
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty moving scene. And my favorite scene.
Yeah,
But it
yeah.
hurt my feelings when she was yelling at the general. I was like, oh, she's your friend, you know.
Listen, I
Yeah.
was torn apart because Okoye
Yeah.
just had that great fight scene on the bridge. Like
Yeah.
when she had to fight
Gave
off, like,
it
some
all.
of the yeah,
Yeah, she's like,
left
well,
it out.
well,
Yeah.
you think you gave it all? I don't have anybody left. The one person I had is trapped because of you. So,
She was like,
Oh,
my
that was-
hair isn't even here. My hair.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. One of the only complaints that I had ever heard on that community of hate called Twitter is lots of people were upset that there was no black male representation really in the movie like that. And my question to those people are, where else was the story gonna go? Like there was T'Challa, his mama, and his sister. You take out T'Challa, it's in a whole women's brigade of warriors. Where else was the movie supposed to go?
Well,
and that is
my
literally
question
the
is
only
this.
criticism that I heard about the whole movie. And I'm like, that's the stupidest criticism I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, but
It was
the question
incredibly
is where are black men represented anywhere else? I mean, there's only been like 5 black actors in my entire life. I mean, it's not like every time you flip on a movie, it's like, here go these blacks again. Every time I turn around, some black man doing his thing up on the screen. I've seen 5 of them.
Denzel,
One of them Claire
Samuel.
Underwood.
You
He's
gonna
only
see
good for Pete
Denzel,
women.
Samuel, or Will Smith. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yo,
well,
not too much
yeah.
low budget stuff. Like, I
Yo,
watched
but
that.
Jonathan Majors is
Ooh, wait.
Yeah,
well,
he's
Jonathan
coming.
Majors
He's
is getting
coming.
in
Oh
there.
yeah,
Yeah, dude is on the come up. Him and Michael B. Jordan on the come up for real. They about to, somebody got to move out. Denzel and them, man, they getting old. Denzel is gonna start stealing roles from Morgan Freeman in about 5 years.
Yo, what happened there? What happened there?
Man,
I feel like the thing- Go ahead, T.
no, nothing. Go ahead.
No, so I was actually glad, like when I was coming in, like Jonathan Majors was on like 2 or 3 movie promos for the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I missed the
Right.
preview because I came in there and all I heard was, wow, he's in really good shape. And I was like, you know what, man?
Jonathan Majors? When has he not been?
He looks tougher.
Man,
Yeah.
listen, man.
He does look tougher.
You know what? I
You
don't
just settle down over there.
Listen, she's gonna be listening. She'll be like, Kang is taking charge. All right, I'm with it.
She's about to watch the whole Creed movie on mute.
Man, I've watched The Harder They Fall about 15 times.
That's
I
a great
absolutely
movie.
love that movie. Oh,
That's a
it's so
great
good.
movie.
It's great.
Yeah.
And they did a Chadwick Boseman shout out in that movie too. So that just goes to show you that he's, was a phenomenal actor, not just in Black Panther, but just as a person. And so, he's showing up all over the place.
My money's on Omar Gooding taking his place.
What?
I'm just playing.
Excuse me now?
That's like, who the hell is Omar Gooding?
That's not going to happen.
No.
People like,
I
Omar
can
Gooding?
guarantee that's not going to happen.
They're like, Omar Gooding? Ain't that Brandy's brother?
No, that's Ray J.
Oh, that's Ray J. My
Oh.
mistake.
It's pretty much the same career path.
Is it though? Is it
Yeah.
though?
Both disappointing
Yeah, both
siblings.
sounds.
They fall in
Greg,
the
to your
disappointing
point,
sibling realm.
I like the fact that M'Baku didn't come in and like take the helm of the Black Panther or anything like that. That they had him just kind of play the backdrop and be supportive and play his role, not only being an outsider from Wakanda traditionally, but also from their ideology as well, because he's always saw things different. And so even when Shuri came in, it was kind of after seeing, Killmonger was at the throne that she saw. So once they had their conversation and she kind of came down with her new direction, he went with it, He, talked to her about it, gave her a little bit of advice, and, he was there to support the rest of the way. So I think that criticism that was out there, that's all I kept hearing. And I saw the movie the day after it came out. So I'm like looking at comments and complaints, and I'm like, nah, that can't be it. And so when I saw the movie, I was like, nah, it was bullshit. So
Yeah,
definitely, I agree.
Sense, right? I mean, a lot of it was about the people that were close to the Black Panther and how they were affected and how they were trying to move on, and all the people close to them were female, right? Just about all of them. So
There was no other place for them to go.
Yeah.
No.
And like I said, it's not like there were a bunch of weak females that were in the first movie or something. These are all very strong women.
Yeah.
So it all follows suit and plays well.
And I love how they played off each other when Riri Williams got her introduction. And she kind of gave the solution to Shuri on drying him out because nobody knew how to stop Namor because he's basically a mutant, right? And so when they figured out that if you dry him out, that's how, you know, you'd be able to fight on even ground. And they kind of took him to the desert. I thought they put all the puzzle pieces together for you to be able to see, look, this is how they would get this done. Because again, the whole theme of, oh, she could never beat it. I'm like, actually, yeah.
What about the scientist character? Are they gonna make a movie for her too?
She has a TV show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Disney
cool.
Plus.
Cool. Hey,
I did not know that.
Speaking of the only real criticism that Greg had brought about with Twitter, another show that the Black Advancement Incorporated has is all about the perspective of women, specifically Black women, and that is The Female Voice. I will be quiet and I will let Shanice take it away.
Well, we just talked about strong, successful Black women. So our topic for today is, are men attracted to strong women, or are independent women?
Yo, why is Greg chuckling? What was that about?
Do these women intimidate men? Because there are a lot of single Black women out there that are successful, that have careers, that have a great education, but they're single. So we're wondering, is being a successful Black woman a turnoff, or is it not?
Lauren, you can go first. I mean,
And then we men will destroy all of
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Because I can give you the simple man answer real fast. But Lauren, the table is yours.
Oh my God, this is going exactly how I didn't want it to go. Go ahead, Lauren.
You're welcome.
So, because we are always open to conversation and the opinions of others, we like to kind of broaden and hear other people's perspectives. But we also want to preface to say that we know that being a strong, successful, powerful woman is always a good thing. But we always want to just make sure that and acknowledge that for some people in other communities, they don't necessarily have to have these conversations, because this can be something that in the Black community is a conversation, because it may not be the natural answer of always yes. And so that's why we just want to have that preface to say we know that the answer is that it's always great to have a powerful woman, but some people may, the way that is implemented can be a challenge in some relationships. So that would be my take on it. I do think that, you know, it's always a conversation and everybody is different and everybody has their own opinion.
All right. Rob, would you like to go next?
Oh, no.
Yeah, let me go ahead and jump in here. So
I will piggyback off of you, sir.
Yeah, so successful, strong women, it's the reason I married my wife. I mean, it's a woman just like Greg Hodges and Thad's mom. I mean, who would not want women that are strong and successful? To me, my concern when I got married was, if something happens to me, who will care for my children? Will that person be fearless? Will they do the things that need to be done? Will they love my children, care for them, my family? Something happens to me, and that's why I chose my wife. I mean, it's what any real man wants. It takes, I mean, yes, there are men who really don't care either way, right? They just want a woman. But I mean, any successful man would like a strong, successful woman. I would love to just hand my wife the check. She take care of everything. I just, you know, get my little allowance, mind my business, don't have to think about anything. She makes all the decisions. That'd be great. I make decisions all day long at work. I'm sick of being in charge. You know, let somebody else handle it. So,
Rob,
for me,
what you have just described is actual marriage.
Yeah, well, it really doesn't work that way. That's the second part here. So that's what I would love, but it just doesn't work like that. So in the end, ultimately, I did marry a very strong, successful Black woman, but at the same token, I'm still left to make all those decisions and have all that responsibility. So, you know, I don't think it's a turnoff for men. I think the reason that those women are single is because many times when I see strong, successful Black women, they have a thought about Black men that is a hurdle for Black men just from the start. And so a lot of Black men aren't really willing to put in that work because why go and get a ladder to climb and get an apple from the top of the tree? You just walk by and grab one off the bottom. You know, so that's just my thinking in general about why they're less than successful and probably still single.
Rob will be featured on the female voice here coming up. I'm
He's got a spot with the apple tree.
Funeral services will be held next Thursday. Free to send flowers and candy to your favorite charity.
Oh, we've forgotten Michelle. Would you like to?
Sure. I don't have any personal experience with guys like that, but a friend of mine, she told me she lived in an apartment and she had to like replace the taillight in her trunk and like replace the carpeting on the trunk. And so she went out and printed out the instructions. She bought all the materials and she was just in there in the parking lot following the instructions, doing it herself. And she said this guy came up to her and she's like, and asked her what she was doing. And she explained, and he's like, oh, you can't be doing that on your own. Like what? Like basically saying, you can't be showing how independent you are and self-sufficient because guys don't like that. I was like, wow, where do you find? Okay. I didn't know that's still out there, but I guess they are.
Okay, first off, that dude's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Oh boy.
So what was the opening question again there, Shanice? Is it were we intimidated by successful women? Is that the route you were going?
That was the route we were going.
Okay. Let me break down to you why those
Why are
women.
you rolling your sleeves up?
I'll explain to you the difference between successful men in that higher upper echelon and successful women in that higher upper echelon. Successful men in that upper echelon do not care what their woman, their level of ambition, money, all those other things. We don't care about any of that. All we need is support, and it'd be nice to have someone that looks nice. That's generally what most dudes are looking for.
Actually,
once women hit a certain level of success, they are still looking for someone that is on their level. But sorry, ladies, most of the time when you get to that level, all those dudes are probably taken. So that's why you're lonely. You refuse to look down. To look down at
lower your standards is what he's saying. I think
it's cutting grass.
Oh boy.
You want an equal. Look for someone much lesser than you. You don't need anyone good.
No, you're not gonna find anyone equal. You're not gonna find it.
You're not invited to
the apple tree.
You don't have to invite me.
But
But they're all gone, ladies. Name one successful paid dude that's not married. Exactly.
Yo, that's not it. That's not it. Yo, that's not it. Man.
That's funny.
Looking for something that's not there. Those dudes are gone. Not one of them exists. They're all taken.
Go, Maurice, go.
So
on the same page as you, or a little bit below. We have no problem going below.
Until you get to a certain, they'll start getting.
Yeah.
So to Greg,
what level of success are we talking?
Let Maurice talk, please.
It's all good. I can wait.
No, I'm serious. What level of success are we talking here for you successful women's?
Lauren, go ahead. What level?
Did you throw an S in there at the end for no reason? Did you say women?
Yes, I did. Women's as in plural.
Her own career, her own job.
That's a relative term.
Money.
Yeah, no one's intimidated by that. We prefer that.
Some
people
do.
You guys are talking about.
I think it's twofold. I think it's twofold. You get.
I'm talking about regular.
Go ahead, Maurice.
Their women working.
Go ahead, Maurice.
So I think it's twofold. You get women who get to a certain level of success, kind of like what Greg said. They're looking for this equal level of success, but just like with men, when they reach a level of success, there typically aren't many women. There aren't many people at that level of success to begin with. So the pickings of that is small. And most times, once you get to that level, people are already taken, especially if they've been at that level for a period of time. So for, for this case, we're talking about Black women. Black women are Black people in general are just starting to get to that point in mass. And so since we're all new to this, it's kind of, again, there just aren't many people. I think it was a Jay-Z lyric, the higher I go, the smaller the circle or something like that, or something along those lines, where it just gets smaller.
The smaller my circle gets.
Yeah, it's just fewer people. But really what I think it comes down to is what we're finding with us is there was a generational shift that happened. You have a household of both boys and girls, men and women now, who were, as women, they were raised to be housewives. They were raised to stay at home, take care of the kids, maintain the house, and do all of that stuff. Men were raised to take care of the family. Then you had this shift while we were like teenagers that women became more independent. It became a thing for women to be just as independent as men and not to be not to need to rely on a man for anything. So men then didn't understand women who were able to also take that dominant role in a household, and women weren't able to really handle that role as well of being a dominant, financial dominant force in the household. So there's a misunderstanding there, really, in my opinion, of what's going on, that people we haven't figured it out yet because it's so new to us. It's so new to our culture that both men and women, you have a 2-household income. It's shared responsibilities across the table. So that's, I think, where the disconnect is. I don't think it's a fear of successful women. Hell, it makes life easier when the woman, I don't want to say when the woman is equally, when there's an equal balance, when there's an equal balance in the household, it makes everything easier. All the responsibilities could be divided up equally, and it makes everybody's life easier.
I didn't mean to laugh at you, but it's just, I was thinking about myself, but I'm like, I'm responsible for everything. So I don't know. Having a successful, strong Black woman really hasn't changed a thing, because at the end of the day, they're not going to be homeless with the water cut off, waiting around with somebody else. So it really does.
Like, I'm not either. That's the point, though. Like, I'm going to do what I have to do now, whether she does or doesn't. I'm going to be all right. So if you want to make things better, you better pull your weight.
But let me ask you, gentlemen, something. Go ahead, Audrey.
This is all a relative term also. You have to think about it. Like, don't think about success as like, she has all these different things. I think you have a valid point, Maurice, to say like there's a generational shift and we're all just kind of figuring it out as we go along. But you don't necessarily have to have all of the markers. You could just be a woman that may have more of a stable job than your partner. And that might cause some friction because, just like you said, the man may have been taught that he should be making more money than his woman, and because he doesn't, he may have an opinion about himself or that relationship because of that may make him feel not so good. And so all I'm saying is that we're still figuring out some of that.
But you realize there's also an inverse to that, right?
Of course, there could be an inverse to everything, but I'm really referring to the other part, the latter.
Well, I'm just saying that there may be some guys in that situation, and then their women looks at them like they're less than.
Absolutely. That was the point, though.
Exactly.
That we are trying to figure this out. Like, women haven't understood how to manage that role of being the financial dominant person in the relationship. And men haven't quite figured out how to accept when their woman is the financially dominant person in the relationship. Like, it's just kind of convoluted right now because everybody's roles are kind of interchangeable, whereas we were kind of raised to look at roles in a singular way. So it's just a little different.
I will say,
I think that's the problem, though, is that people were
rappers. That's what it comes down to. These ladies, these successful women, are going to have to accept these SoundCloud rappers and give them a chance to get that game.
Nobody's saying you should be with a SoundCloud rapper.
Carrying the weight finance.
Nobody said that. We're saying that. I'm saying that women that are at an executive position.
We're not talking about those people, though.
We're just talking about regular average women as far as success.
That's what I'm saying is in terms of success.
I don't know any dude that has any problem with those. That all seems to work out fine, but for every incident I know.
Not according to what Maurice's point is, though. He's saying that as a generation, we're all figuring out together. Not necessarily just the executives are figuring it out, but all the people that work there got it kind of under control.
I think that Black women have it especially bad because of the high rate of education that they attain. And it's like once you get to a certain that's leading them to these plateaus that, quite frankly, not only not Black men, but most men just aren't really attaining at a regularity that they are. Like a lot of Black women.
Well, I think
but that's self-inflicted though. Like just because you went to school and got a degree doesn't mean I gotta have a degree to be a successful man. Like
I didn't say that.
I'm still a good solid. I know, but that's what I'm saying. If that's what they're looking for, then that's a self-inflicted wound that they're opening up to themselves.
That's what I'm saying, and that's the approach that I look at it when people speak that way. They're
but
not willing to
I think
give.
Black women in general have had it so rough throughout the years. At least Black men, we've had some capacity to physically fight back, and Black women have had not only racism but other
Sexism
Black
involved,
men to fight against, right? And so they've had it so tough that their expectations and standards are probably a bit higher than the men's side of it, right? Because they're looking for these other types of things, and so.
But Rob,
I get their
drugs.
But to that point, Rob,
that's what I'm saying. I'm selling drugs. What more can I do, woman? But it's. I just think Black women have had it very
Stable
tough,
drug deal.
and now this is just, even when you go and you're successful, it's still hard to be a Black woman, right? And as a Black man, well, I mean, any successful man, Black or white, it's no problem to get women. As a person who has been very poor, it was no problem to get women in either. So, but if you have no standards, it's pretty simple, right? But when you have standards and you're trying to build something yourself, you put all this effort in yourself, you're not going to accept someone who just doesn't do anything for themselves. And to Maurice's point, statistically, it's like anything else. The pyramid is like this. At the top, there's only one, right? There's only one richest man. There's not richest person. There's not 20 of them. There's only one. And then below that, it's less and less successful. And so, unfortunately, the higher in the atmosphere you go, the less people that are going to be there to choose from. So you can't just, but that's the thing about it is when you talk about a relationship in a marriage, it has nothing to do with money or success. It has to do with the strength of the person, right? Their character and how you feel about it. I mean, I knew my wife as soon as we had met each other. I was like, this is going to lead to something. Even my friends were like, she like my friend from Brazil, she gonna hook you up. And she did. And we've been married now for 23 years, of a beautiful family, and I'm very happy. I never cared whether she was educated or anything. I knew that all the things in life we find our way through together, and she was a strong survivor, and she came from nothing, and she would be able to ensure that our children weren't starving or homeless. And and with my work and effort to put things and processes and plans in place to help support that, it was almost impossible for her to fail. So it doesn't really have anything to do with success. It really just has to do with, can these people that are less successful be able to be the type of person that someone would want a relationship with?
Excellent.
Can I ask a question?
All great points.
Antoine talks.
Excellent points.
Before you go, Antoine, because I know you.
No, go ahead, T. Go ahead. You're good.
I just got a quick question first, because my response has some bearing on my response. When we talk about this intimidation thing, are we talking about a man approaching a woman to try to enter a relationship, or we're talking about a man and woman that are already in a relationship and she, starts to become more successful than him or whatever? Because to me, like, if we're talking about approaching, I actually think a man would be more intimidated by the way a woman looks. Like, if a woman is really, really a stunner, then the guy is a lot more intimidated to approach her. It doesn't matter if she's the CEO, if she, just kind of looks like everybody else. If you're trying to, if a man is going to approach them. So anyway.
Speak to both points, CJ. Go ahead.
Yeah, however you want to.
Yeah, speak to both points.
Cool.
Well, I mean, I just spoke to the one about approaching them. Right? If you're not in a relationship with them, I think that most men, maybe any man, would be more intimidated by a woman that looks like she's got somebody, right? I mean, like, she's extremely well put together. She's super pretty. She stands out in the crowd. Most guys are not going to go and approach her for a couple of reasons. Number one, they think she's already got somebody. Number two, they think maybe they're not good enough to approach them, right? Which is probably why, if they do have the guts to go up and talk to them, they probably do get that phone number. But anyway, because most guys
TikTok accounts,
or whatever.
but
people give out TikTok accounts. That's what happens.
On the point about
I'd be lost in the game.
Beautiful. That I think when women are super attractive, like when I was a young single man, when I would go places, I would look for the women who were most beautiful, the best looking one in the place. The reason being is they are typically the most insecure. They are the ones that are the easiest to get anywhere with, because you have limited competition, because most men are so intimidated, they won't even go up and say a word. So largely you'll notice if you watch, they will just be sitting there. No one will talk to them. No one will approach them. No one will ask them to dance. And I always found that the better looking the woman, the easier the woman was to approach and to move forward with.
And that's our show.
What
happened? What happened? Out there.
Listen, Rob is 100% right. It's always easier.
I knew Greg was going to jump in here.
Because no one wants to talk to him because they're all scared. Everyone's scared.
Yeah.
And a person like me who has no feelings at all is no problem.
Hey, Greg, I'll take a no from an ugly one just as well as a pretty one. It's all fine.
Hey, worst thing that happens is no.
That's it.
Oh, take it easy.
Second point, when you're in a relationship and the woman starts to climb successfully, is that an intimidation to men?
Go ahead.
It depends.
Let Antoine go.
Oh, go ahead, Antoine.
I think that no. That should be the answer, right? But it depends on the man. There's a new generation of men, everything kind of intimidates them, right? But if you have a man that's confident in who he is, you kind of want to listen. I'm not pulling punches with this shit, right? Because it's like it's a conversation that goes on like every week. Somebody's podcast or bullshit is like, oh, men, women, and it's like, no. If you want your woman to be successful, you know, I think that what our generation has a chance to do is kind of redefine these roles that people were supposed to have. And it's like, no, a woman's job is not to do X, Y, and Z, is to do whatever she's looking to do. And you got to support her and build with her. And, you know, you should be growing with that. To, I think, Maurice's point, it's easier that way, right? Nobody wants to have the burden of having everything on their shoulders alone, but you should not be afraid of being able to kind of, you know, carry things along and be like Rob and do whatever you got to do at that point, if that's what it calls for. I think the real challenge always falls for women and Black women in particular. When you talk about what you're looking for, are you looking for the person or are you looking for what they do? Because those are two separate entities there, right? And I think that's where a lot of people kind of run into traffic at, because they'll say, oh, there's no good men or this, or I make this amount of money and I can't find anybody. And it's like, you can go on a date any day of the week. You know, a lot of women, incredibly beautiful. You can go out there, any woman right now, you go into the middle of the street and say, who want to take me on a date? You're going to get a response. You'll get a lot less no's than you will yeses, as opposed to a man. You could take a guy, come out there, you could be dressed like a lumberjack and be loaded. Nobody know it. You go out there and try to pull the same thing, not a soul. You know, exactly. That's exactly what you're going to get. So
there's a lot of plumbers out there.
Exactly.
Yeah, but like Antoine said, you know, about these women, are they treating their intended relationship like they've treated their education and business? It's just another step to advance their life. If so, then yes, you're going to need someone who's on your level. But if your intent is to truly have a fulfilling relationship with someone you can grow old with, it doesn't matter where they are. You'll find it. Like when I met my wife, I was an engineer working at IBM. She was working on one of the tools as a processor, right? Two different worlds, right? I go in there, check, make sure everything's running like it's supposed to, back to my office. She's in there all day long doing that. It's two different worlds, two different levels of education and work. But when you're looking to be happy and to have a family, all you're looking for as a male in most cases is someone who can help you care for the children, help you raise them, help keep you in line, you know. And as a woman, you're probably looking for someone who can, you know, I hate to be chauvinistic, but someone who can protect you. When there's a noise in the house, my wife doesn't get up, cock a gun and go see what's going on, right? Right. That's me, right? When the car's leaking oil in the driveway, she's not out there jacking it up, climbing underneath, trying to figure out what we're going to do. We have jobs and roles here, you know, just like when it's time to cook dinner. If it's my turn, I'll call whoever you like. If it's her turn, you know, it's just a difference in that. If you're trying to build a relationship, then you should pick someone who makes you happy. If you're trying to build a life career, and an appearance to others, then you got to accept what's going to come of that. Because if you, as a strong black woman, if you get a strong black successful man, and you're both of that mindset of building life, and it's not about the relationship, he will eventually find someone who's higher than you and leave you, or vice versa. She will leave him.
But I wanna jump in on that, right? So that's like my problem with that is that it doesn't matter. Like if a woman wants power and money, right? Like a lot of women, when they're describing a partner that they can't find, that they feel that they're some certain level financially, right? Or have attained some level of success that's beyond, like, I just have degrees and I have a great job. They feel like, hey, they want to be taken care of. Every woman wants to be taken care of. The girl that works at McDonald's wants to be taken care of. Nobody wants, and it's not that they need you to take care of them, but it's nice to have a partner to do that. But there are people who, you know what, they like certain things. And I think that's okay. But if you go into that relationship or intending to get into a relationship and that's your intent, sell it as that. Don't sell it as nobody wants you and there's nobody out here. No, there's plenty of people out there. So to your point with that, right, I just feel like you got to be honest with yourself as a woman. What are you looking for? What is important to you? And what is important to one woman may not be important to another one. So
like I said in the beginning,
just like everything else, the female voice has taken up the entirety of everybody's mind because
whoa.
You didn't let me finish. I said because it's the dopest show. Thanks, Lauren. Thanks for undercutting your own point.
And that is why successful women are lonely.
And that's why they're lonely. And we are going to go on to the last section after we all pray. So we're gonna So the last thing is our flagship. It's kind of our flagship program that we do, and that is the roundtables and symposiums. It's kind of the reason why Black Advancement exists in the first place. It's part of I should say the mission statement, where we always talk about issues within the Black community and then try to find solutions towards them. Although this one isn't necessarily a solution type of thing, it fits more so into the symposium and just talking about Black issues as a whole. And the one that came up recently, especially with a lot of things that have been going on in the news between like things like Kyrie Irving or things like with Kanye West, things with some other people where they were talking about Brittany Griner, even as recently as that, where a lot of Black people will jump on one side or the other, saying that, you know, if someone says something, I'll just one-sided and say sensible, right? If someone says something relatively sensible, there's a lot of people who will come on the hate machine, aka Twitter, and be like, "Yo, you a sellout, Jay Reed. You ain't no cop," right? They'll just come out there and just call them a sellout outright. So I'm wondering if the Black community has a problem with overusing the idea of what a sellout is and understanding what a sellout is. So I kind of throw out the idea: what is a sellout to you? And do you think that Black people overuse it within our community?
I guess I'll go.
Thank you, Maurice.
I think a sellout to me is anybody who disparages their own for either some kind of personal gain or to garner some kind of favor by another group. So so that's essentially what I feel a sellout is. Now, do I think that we use that term a little too much? Absolutely. I do. I mean, I think that we keep putting ourselves in these boxes of this is Blackness. And if you don't fit in this box, you aren't Black and you're a sellout. You're an Uncle Tom, or is there an aunt version? Is there an aunt?
Mammy? There's a mammy? Yeah, mammy.
I don't know.
Yeah. Mammy.
That's not the same thing? A mammy's not the same thing?
No.
I don't know. But anyway.
A house wench.
Like,
I think would be the proper term.
So people don't call Condoleezza Rice like a mammy or something like that? You don't think they call her that?
They don't call her mammy.
No, they just call her a sellout. I don't think she's a sellout, but that's what they call
her. You can be a sellout and be a woman too.
I'm just saying, as far as like an Uncle Tom or something like that.
In terms of a term that would be used.
Yeah.
Like this
anyway, just a sellout.
Yeah, it's all good. So yeah, I think we use that term a little loosely. That if a person doesn't agree with the majority of the Black community, not that they're disparaging the Black community at all, but they just don't agree with them, then that person is labeled a sellout. I think that's kind of ridiculous. We aren't a linear people. Like, we have have different thoughts, we're raised differently, we have different experiences, we see the world differently, just like anybody else. And so if we happen to disagree with people's viewpoint, it doesn't necessarily make us a sellout. It just makes us unique or an individual. Now, if we start talking down on Black folks to say, if we go full Uncle Ruckus or something like that, that's sellout lines right there. But other than that, that's kind of the extreme. But short of that, I think people are just voicing their opinions, and that's perfectly fine.
I think that people voicing their opinions is one thing. Do I think that we use the term sellout too much? I think that there are people that use it too much, and it seems like it's all Black people. But I think the preponderance of the time that a bunch of Black people are calling someone a sellout, it's generally legit. I mean, when you talk about, Kanye West and the things he said, I don't even know if sellout gets to the level of destruction that his words and actions and all are causing. So it's sort of like in his case on the light side, but to me, I don't find that it's used too much when the preponderance of Black people believe it, because most times that when the majority of Black people are saying you're a sellout, you're a sellout. And unfortunately, in this day and age, there are a bunch of sellouts, because nowadays the price that's being paid for people to sell out is so high that their character just and their color and their people don't mean anything to them, and they're willing to sell out Black people for a few $1 million or in many cases much less. But just I don't think that we as a people use it too much, but I think that there are people that use it too much.
Plus, also, you have to think about when you're a sellout, you are elevating whiteness instead, right? So you are a person that's saying that these things that they believe in, that they're doing, are good and better than our things. And I think there can be a test to be a sellout. And if you pass the test, you might be called one.
Yo, Lauren said that there's a coon Scantron sheet.
Hey, look, don't say coon. I've got kicked off Facebook like 5 times for that. Apparently,
answer C to all of these questions. Chances are.
I think that's true.
I agree with both. I would agree with everybody as far as the idea that Black people, once they call you a sellout, you a sellout. Because just to get to one of Audrey's point, like Black people are one of the most accepting people there is. We accept a lot of people. And if I feel like if we feel betrayed and we call you a sellout, more than likely you are. I can't think of anyone that we called a sellout that's not a sellout. Yeah.
Well,
Brian Gumbo.
I'll say folks are calling Dion a sellout.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
Different sellout, though, right? I mean, to me, I thought his sellout was
are there levels to sellout?
You in football, not necessarily Black people in general, because the fact is Black people go to all colleges, not just HBCU. So I didn't really see him. To me, it was just a business decision, and him running his mouth about God sending him to save HBCUs is what put him in the position he's in to take the beating he's deservedly getting right now.
That is 100%.
I mean, they can.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you good, money.
No, go ahead, man. Go ahead, man. You got it.
I was just gonna say that the fact that in the Dion case they're calling him a sellout en masse behind the business decision that happens with college coaches literally every day. If they took him to task over his statement that you talked about with God sent me to save HBCUs and all of that, I'm good with that, right? But anything else, his players aren't complaining. He's actually took a decision and took a smarter step than a lot of folks. He didn't want to work as an assistant coach, so he went somewhere that accepted him as a head coach. And then he proved himself, right? He's prime time. He's good at what he does with football. He moved on, and now he's going to a place that hasn't won since probably all of us were kids. So now, again, is that a sellout? Or is that him actually taking smart steps in his career? I don't think so. He's not the same as a Kanye West, where Kanye, I think, has been very disparaging of Black folks in general, right?
Yeah.
Not just
Slavery
this late run with, right.
Yeah, hanging out with neo-Nazis. I mean.
Yeah, he loves
it.
That's what I'm saying. You have that elevation of whiteness to me is where it gets real bad. It's like, okay, Deion Sanders, maybe you could have stayed. That's up for debate. But if you're a Kanye West person, you're saying like, this stuff is better. These people matter. This is cooler. That's where I think it gets kind of in a
It's
bad
self-hatred, right?
Yeah.
It becomes a
Yeah,
self-hatred type of thing.
Yeah. It's like I want this group to prosper because this group is bad. That's no good.
Yeah, that and turning a blind eye to Black oppression.
Yeah,
That's a sellout to me too.
Yeah.
Oh, that was right over the top all day. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the part that really gets me. It's bad enough that you denigrate Blacks because we're open to criticism. We do a lot of stuff that we probably shouldn't be doing, right? As a community. But when you start down this other road, it's like, man, when you act like slavery isn't a thing, like that's not why Black people are poor these days or a huge piece of it, or why we are in jail is still disproportionately, and all these things are just happenstance, and Black people need to learn how to act and all this. You're definitely a sellout. You're well in the coon range then.
Well, first of all, we all know that slavery was a choice. That's number one. Number two, what happened? What happened there? What happened there?
It never happened.
Yeah, it's all a choice.
That's next. That's next, and it's already being worked on by the Republican Party.
And that's
2024.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Is that we laughing, but somebody is gonna run on that.
I said that because Kanye said that. That's the only reason.
It's true. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. 10, 15 years, it'll be like we were never slaves and any of that. So it's just a matter of time. I mean,
yeah, and they're starting from the ground up too. That's why they didn't want any CRT being taught. They're gonna realign the whole history program. All these things. The Sisters of the Revolution or whatever. There's that group. They're the reason why we don't know shit in school now about history. Because they wanted
the Daughters of the Confederacy.
That's what it was. When I say the Sisters of Marvin Jackson or something, I said it don't matter.
Sisters of Marvel Jackson.
It's like Randy Jackson something or another. I don't know.
Randy Jackson. What does Randy gotta do to get the Okay, so CJ, what do you think about this topic, man?
Well, do we use it too much? That's kind of for me, somebody's intent matters a lot, to call them a sellout, right? Somebody like Kanye, he's done enough where I think we can safely put that stamp on him. So I guess to make the distinction, here's what I mean. Like, there's a difference between having complaints and being a complainer, right? Those are different things. So there are people that may be pro-Black and for the Black community, but all of their actions may not jive with what a typical Black person sees as something being good for the Black community, right? So a perfect example, you and I were talking about it the other day, the difference between Booker T and W.E.B. Du Bois, right? One person says you need to have a craft, the other person says we need to flip the tables over, right? Both approaches are meant to reach the same goal. They're just different approaches. So one might call the other a sellout, even though both of them, their intent is to try to help the community. So I think we just need to make sure that we're careful labeling somebody as a sellout, and we need to understand what their intent actually is. So I do agree with the point that most people that have been labeled, across the Black community as sellouts, they have passed Lawrence Stank test. So they're typically sellouts. But I mean, just me personally, that's kind of how I feel about the whole sellout thing. I like to, if I can, understand the person's intent. And I guess there are such things as sellout actions without the person being a sellout all the way, right? I may not have said that very well, but I think you get the point.
Black people invented cancel culture. So we were the first to call people sellout. So just like we're trendsetting, now they just got a new name for it.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, all the things that Deion Sanders has done for the Black community, and this one thing, and all of a sudden
it makes you a sellout. Yeah.
But that's the point. Like,
you know what I mean?
It's like you try to progress your career, and because you don't do what everybody else thinks you should do, you're considered a sellout. Like, to me, that's ridiculous.
Exactly.
Like
They're
he
trying to
didn't
do the same
disparage
thing.
the community at all.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
he's trying to bring
Well,
half of his staff with him.
I will say that like what the way that he it wasn't so much that he got a new job. First of all, I thought that Colorado job is like one of the worst jobs in Division I football. So I was more so looking at it like, yo, bro, you don't want to try to hold out for something else besides college. Colorado won one game last year. I don't think I played on the team last year. So like
They
that's
didn't
how
have
bad
Deion Sanders.
I had 13 yards receiving.
Yeah, Maurice went out on a route.
13 yards. Yeah.
Like that team is bad, yo. But more so from the standpoint of I thought he let it down because as some people know, HBCUs we roll a little bit different in terms of the way that we view our schools and the community. Like there's nothing wrong with PWIs from that perspective, but they don't go back to homecoming. You know what I'm saying? They don't go back every year and try to help mentor people who are there and all that. I'm not saying that's a universal thing. This is generalizing, but
that's what we grown up, moved on. Get your rap money in college. Ain't nobody coming back.
I say it like this all the time. I think that some people went to school for different reasons. A lot of times when black people go to these PWIs, it's kind of like a business decision. You know what I mean? So to speak. And that's probably being too harsh as well. But I mean,
no, it's true. It's true. That's
mean,
why I went as a business decision. I knew when I went into business at the executive levels, it would be almost exclusively white people. Why would I go to a school where it's all black people? And then I get in that white setting and I can't operate, maneuver, and be successful. So the networking, right? Which I didn't do that great a job with, but the other pieces of the plan all fell into place. So Rob, it's entirely true.
Rob got more black friends as if he went to an HBCU. So it doesn't
I'm so much less concerned about Deion going to Colorado and coaching than I am some of these elite black scholars going to white schools and teaching. Like that's where I have an issue. Because the initial intent, of course, of these HBCUs, and I think it was Howard Bryant that said it, was to educate. Like it wasn't sports and all that stuff. Like that was the role of the black college. And that's what the role of the black college continues to be. And I don't think we really need to start to kind of muddy those waters and focus on athletics as a dominant factor for whether the school is successful or not. Like I can't, I'm sure there are people who, went to Hampton and other HBCUs that aren't successful. But as far as I'm concerned, you make it through 4 years at an HBCU and you get out and you get a job, you're successful. Like just seeing that amount of young black people, depending on, especially on where you came from, you don't see that anywhere else. Like that's an anomaly on earth, at least in America. And so, again, I have a bigger issue with these elite educators going to teach at white universities as opposed to teaching at black universities. That's where my issue is.
I'm gonna go to Antoine real quick, and then I'm gonna go to Michelle. Go ahead, Antoine.
Facts. So I agree with everything you just said, Maurice, but I want to pedal back a bit to the sports part, right? So for me, the issue with Deion was that when he went there, he took like top 5, I don't want to say draft picks, but folks in the class who are going to be impactful. Who else would have went to an Alabama or an LSU or something like that, right? And then I go back to when I was younger and I remember like how Reggie Bush was treated, right? But I think about Reggie Bush's college impact, probably the most electrifying college player we've ever seen, right?
Best college.
Think about how much. Exactly. Now think about how much money they made off the nacho cart, the parking, the number 5 jerseys, anything. Whenever he was stepping inside of that stadium, inside of USC in Southern California, right? He saw not a dime of that money. If you have that kind of talent going to an HBCU, right? Because people talk about training facilities, they talk about the disparity in money and things of that nature. You now shift that power by empowering these kids to realize that, hey, an HBCU is just as important as a PWI. And guess what? If you bring that talent there, Deion brought college game day. We've never had college game day at no HBCU ever. And that's huge. That not only brings eyes there, forget about the band, the dancing and all of that, but you're talking about actual value now being seen in that HBCU. So I thought that if he stayed there a little longer, you had Eddie George that went to Tennessee State or something like that. He's still there. And, a few other coaches that were in the NFL that have started to say, you know what, I have the temperament for being able to coach. And they'll shift the philosophy that you don't have to go to Nick Saban, right? When he goes deep down to the swamp in Florida and he comes out with Derrick Henry could have went to FAMU. Why not? Right? Now, if you do that, Now they have to come to us, and now that money and that television money, more importantly, comes there. I thought Dion did a great job. He brokered the deal, I think, was it with Pepsi or something like that? 4-year deal or something like that for the HBCUs and what have you. That's the kind of power that you have. Then you got to use that power and keep that money in-house, and that will allow us to then begin to build and grow and develop all those things that we're lacking. So I think that was my issue, and that's why I think that with sports, for better or for worse, however people view it, is the great equalizer for us. We are talented across pretty much every sport that you can think of, and if you have folks who see value in HBCUs and take that route for their education, the attraction becomes there, and now we get a chance to actually build up.
Oh, Michelle, go ahead.
Well, I think it can also, that whether it's overused as a term and an idea, it can depend on the circles you're in. I remember watching an interview with this guy who was from Central Kentucky, and he said whenever he would go home, he'd visit home, he'd go to a family gathering, a lot of his relatives would give him a hard time just for wearing colored shirts and khaki pants, but he said they were, younger adults and teenagers, and they were still kind of like grappling in their head with what it means to navigate a white dominant society without being a sellout. So he felt that's where that was coming from.
Indeed. Well, this has been more than fun and more than enlightening, and we should probably do this every quarter. I mean, I don't know what you guys had a great time. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I'd like to just take this moment personally. If everyone could just focus on me for a second. No. I would just like to take this moment to thank. No, you
Go ahead.
to thank everybody who made today, and other people who were on the shows regularly who didn't make it. They give of their time willingly. They listen to people willingly that they have no business listening to. That's directed to me. And I appreciate you guys more than anything, and you guys have made my life so full. And I thank each and every one of you. So with all that said, we will come back next year, and I'm gonna tell these guys something cool off camera that you guys won't get to see. So thank you, everybody. See you in 2023. If we don't see you again, peace. And remember, advance.